Another thing to learn about is modifiers, but we can't learn all about modifiers today. There are a lot of modifiers to go through, so let's just learn a couple of them. So let's click on the monkey and then come down to your properties tab. You would see modifiers. This icon that looks like a spanner, just click on it, modifier properties. Now make sure your monkey is selected and click on add modifier. You can go to generate and subdivision surface. So subdivision surface modifier basically tricks the 3D software to make the object look smooth. So if we go into edit mode, we can see our object is not smooth. Our object is still very jaggedy, still very sharp edges and very rough. But when we go back to object mode, it looks very smooth. Let's increase the levels to 2, viewport level to 2. So the higher you go, the smoother it will look. So you can see it looks very smooth now. If I bring it back to 1, it doesn't look that smooth. So let's leave that 2. So if I turn this off, so if I click on this monitor icon here, we won't be able to see the effect of the modifier. You can see this is how it actually looks. But when you click on it, you can now see what Blender is doing to trick us, to make us think that it's a very smooth object, even without adding more geometry. So there are a lot of different modifiers. Let's try something else. So let's click on this cone, a different object, and then add modifier. And this time let's choose array. There are a lot of things you can do here. Now when you choose array, we can see we now have 2 of the objects. So we can increase this count. Let's increase this to 3. And we can see we now have more of the objects. So array modifier basically duplicates your objects and creates different versions of them. So if I change this factor x to 0 and I change the factor z to 1, now we have them piling up on top of it on the z-axis. If I change the z to 0 and change the y to 1, now we have it piling up along the y-axis. So depending on which of these factors have the number, so let's change the y back to 0 and change the z to 1, we have it piling up in that direction. So there are a lot of things you can do here. For example, if we click on the plane, and let's go to the plane, and we'll go to add modifier, and go to generate, and go to solidify. Now our plane no longer looks like a plane, it now has thickness. So if I do Ctrl Z and go back, you see the thickness has gone. If I do Ctrl Shift Z, the thickness is back. So we can adjust some things here. For example, the thickness value, if we drag it forward, click and drag, you can see we can increase the thickness of our plane. This was once a plane, but now it's looking more like a cube. So modifiers make changes to the appearance of your mesh without actually making change to the mesh itself. What do I mean? If I go to edit mode on this plane, you can see that we still have just 4 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just 4 vertices. So it's still a plane, but this modifier is making it look like a cube. So let's increase the thickness a bit. So if I click on this monitor icon again, we no longer see the effect of the modifier. And if I click it again, we now see it. Another thing you can do is to apply a modifier. If you bring your mouse on top of the modifier here and hit Ctrl A, that applies the modifier. So you're no longer deceiving Blender to say, oh, make this thing appear like it's a cube. When you apply the modifier, it makes the change permanent. So if we go into edit mode now, we can see that we now have many points. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertices. So it's now a cube. It's no longer a plane. So modifiers basically help you modify the appearance of your objects.